Okay. You will call me to order, pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Liberty, justice.
Mr. Bernaro. Here. Mr. Bennett. Here. Mr. Grady. Here. Ms. McNair. Here. Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Paris. Here. All right, there is a quorum. Doesn't look like, Doug, unless you want to say anything, I don't think there's any public comments. Try to give people the opportunity before you take the chair, so.
Good evening, everybody.
Is there a nominee for chairman? Nominate. Second. All right, Tim nominated Sal, Jerry seconded. Any other nominations? Okay, all in favor of Sal as chairman?
Aye.
Unanimous. Chairman, it's your meeting.
Nomination for sponsors and vice chair. I would nominate the chair. Vice chair, second. All in favor?
Aye. Just so you guys know, your audio is horrible. I can barely hear anything you're saying.
Oh, sorry.
All garbled.
We'll speak up then, George.
Well, no, it's just garbled. I don't know what the deal is. Even when Kevin's speaking, it's garbled.
Is that better?
That's much better. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so Jerry, you want to make a motion on item three?
Move to approve non-budgeted appropriation of $75,000 for fiscal year 2024 general fund unassigned fund balance to recap tennis and basketball court.
Second.
Discussion? For the high school? It's for the high school, right?
Yes.
I guess the only question I have, Kevin, is like 60 to 65 grade, you have to put in. Is that some fault that we're going 75?
The 75 was the original, and this was to cover if there were any other incidentals, anything that they might identify. And this effort is done because we have to do it every 7 or 8 years to keep the warranty. So if they find anything as they're doing it, there's a little bit of extra in there.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'll move.
Move to appropriate a $500,000 small town economic assistance grant, STEEP, for the Steel Boulevard Park project, and appropriating Connecticut Communities Challenge Grant, $1,560,947 for the Kensington Village Core TOD improvement project, subject to Newport Realty 848 Huntington Ave LLC, securing project financing and approvals.
For a second? Second. Discussion? So we gotta give them 1.5 million in secure funding.
This is appropriating a state grant. So the state actually has granted, it's 2 different grants. The state has granted the money, but it will pass through the town to go to Newport. Newport has to secure private financing for being part of it. This would be housing down by the train station, which would be a mix of both market and affordable housing, which will help the town get towards 10% state grant.
It's a building that has not yet been built.
Yes.
This is the building that's gonna be built.
No, that's 889. That's a separate project.
So this is not for any project within the steel project. This is take this and put it towards your project.
The 500,000 it's a park to enhance the Steel Boulevard area. If you've been to the boulevard, kind of between what used to be 903 and 913, coming down as it bends to the right, they want to put a park there, so there's an opportunity to kind of sit.
Okay, so this is not subsidizing the building, the apartment part of it.
The 1.5 million is,
Yes.
that's state money. This is appropriating a state grant that was just passed through us. The town portion of it has already been satisfied for the state grant with a number of initiatives. The Kensington Fire Department parking lot was used. Work that was done to enhance the Y that is used for a high school. I don't know what the term is, but I'm going to say transition folks who have.
That's the term. Yes, correct.
Okay, Transition Academy,
Yeah.
and a couple of other smaller projects satisfied the town's funds. So it's already money that has been spent from the town side. This is really just us serving as a conduit to help with housing in the TOD area and to help with affordable housing requirements.
Right, those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'll move.
Move to appropriate $2,303.91 for the sale of land, labor, and materials revenue account. And the contractual services and projects account.
Second. Discussion?
Question. Both this one and the next one, Kevin. In the CNR fund, these are just general accounts that don't associate with a particular project. It's just if
They
they
will
need
be,
money, they go to these two accounts.
it will go to this account, but it's actually within the facilities through public buildings. These were items that had been sold, they were old phones, not old phones, new phones. We get new phones every cycle, but we only replace every other cycle. So the phones were put onto Public Surplus, it's a website for auctioning off. Town was able to secure money. This is just appropriating so that the facilities will be able to use it. The last time we went through this cycle, actually, the phone resales were actually used to renovate the rotunda and put together the mailroom, so there's no actual tax money used to do all of that work. And that's what Doug and the facilities group would look to do, is something, not obviously mailroom, but something like that, that these, the sale of assets that actually are ours but didn't cost anything can be of some value to the town.
But the account that they're being spent out of their sort of catch-all accounts.
It's contractual services, general contractual services.
Thank you.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So move.
Move to appropriate $1,865 for the sale of land, labor, and materials revenue account, contractual services and projects account, and the capital recurring.
Second. Discussion? All right, those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll move.
Move to transfer $24,250 of detail on the accompanying spreadsheet from the higher than budgeted expenditures from the area of public accounts.
Second. Discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll move. All right, Ted, the next one is the police station, you wanna go through that?
Sure, you guys, I think by this time are used to the fund balance spreadsheet, and I've been working my way down. I did have the 75,000 in, if you approve tonight. That'll leave you with a fund balance right now, about 13.4%. This would be E8 on the top right. There you go. Give me the next page, Ron. So, about 13.4% of the FY 24 operating budget, still above the 11% floor, still a healthy amount. At the bottom, we were expecting the bids to come in around $3 to $4 million. The low bid that will be going to the council on December 12th for approval to award based on the recommendation of PDC after not only the bid was open, but they did a supplemental interview of the two lowest bidders and are recommending the low bid. $2,524,700. So for once in rare time, we have really good news on the bids. There's $1 million that you had previously appropriated from fund balance that's already in the account. The state bond commission did approve $750,000 for a state grant. So that leaves us with about $775,000 to fund. There is a bond ordinance out there, there's an appropriation going forward and awarding the bid and moving forward with the project is going to happen. I wanted to bring this up to see if anybody has a strong opinion. There's really probably three ways you could go about funding this. One would be to appropriate some of this general fund unassigned fund balance. You have the money, if you did that, 12.6%. If contingency was needed, and we would never borrow contingency up front because we wouldn't borrow money they never need. You could always borrow it later. That if you needed 20%, which would be extreme case, you'd still be above 12%. We could initiate negotiated bond planning with the local bank. I've already had conversations with one that had approached us, I would reach out to a couple more local banks that I'm sure you're all aware of. I would estimate that based on where general obligation bonds have gone out and that previous conversation, you're looking at about 4 to 5% interest. There's also competitive bidding. So competitive bidding is really just a general obligation, put it out there on the street. I would not recommend number 3, if this is the only thing going out. It's gonna cost $50,000 to $70,000 to do a general obligation bond. That's a lot of money to spend for a low amount of money. So wanted to kind of get your thoughts. The only other thing I will add is, if you recall during the budget season, there was a lot of back and forth. Are we gonna get a state grant? Are we need to bond? How much do we bond for the police station? Long story short, when the budget was adopted, there's $155,000 2023 debt service in this budget. We didn't borrow in 2023. I don't anticipate borrowing, or I should say, we didn't borrow in June to be paid this year. So I don't anticipate borrowing this earlier, so you could transfer the $155,000 to help offset some of this cost instead of borrowing. Take that money you've already taxed people for and apply it against the project, which could get you down to about 620. I would say that my recommendation at this point would be to wait and see if the town actually wins anything from the state. You will likely be getting, this was part of my update, the councils, if they call a public hearing for the 12th, you will be getting 2 bond ordinances, one for Griswold, one for Hubbard. The state requires them to be separate, both of which are under $5 million, so we don't need a referendum based on cost estimates the PBC secured. If the town were to win grant for either one of those, that work will have to start this summer and be done by 2025. So if you were to win that, I would recommend rolling them together. Now a general obligation bond would make sense, $2, $3, $4 million, $5 million. Now it's worth spending that money. If not, I would recommend either 1 or 2. I just don't know. I'm just putting this on here, one, to update you because it's good news and let you know so there's no rumors as to what actually happened. And what your thoughts would be around appropriating the money, or if I should just not consider that. It's either a general obligation bond or go negotiate a bond.
Well, I think, I just want to talk this through, but, we're gonna have to eventually bond for the HVAC. For the schools. To use that $155,000. I want to bond with to use the fund balance for the rest of it, because it's the smaller amount that we have than this. Use that and then we can start bonding for the bigger projects. That's just what I'm thinking. But I'm open for.
And there's no vote today. It's just to talk about it. We don't have to make any decision.
That's what I was thinking as he was talking.
What is
I know we got a bond for school, so it's just.
the 300K that we're expecting? Is that number straight in these numbers?
No, 300K is for the architectural work. That
So
money's
it's
not.
not compared to construction.
Yeah, these were the actual bids from the construction companies when we opened them.
The other thing, Kevin, aren't interest rates starting to decline also?
They're kind of moving up and down.
So there may be a chance where
There may be a chance it could
we'll
go down.
start bonding at lower interest rates too.
I mean, USB came out late last week, I believe it was, and predicted that next year they see potential slowing as the economy slows and maybe the Fed reverses and starts lowering interest rates. I don't know if that's true. I mean, these banks have been right and wrong over the last couple of years. It's been all over the place. I don't know that I would bank on that, but I also don't necessarily think you're going to see above 4, 4.5, 5%. I don't see it going that much higher.
But what's the difference right now between short-term rates and long-term rates?
It's really.
You wanted to do a ban.
The bands are actually almost identical. I get a monthly update from our financial.
And we
advisor.
can hedge our bets on whether the rates are going to go down or not for the permanent.
I mean,
What do we
that's,
have, 4 years?
yeah, I mean, at that small of an amount, we could realistically borrow that amount in 5 years at very little rate, lock in, if you could get 4% or lower, you'd probably be better off locking it in, and all the fluctuation rates.
I have a little bit of a problem still of paying everything out of fund balance, especially a project that's supposed to last us another 20 years. You know, these are the types of projects we should be funding. We've already taken $1.3 million out of fund balance to put towards this project. And we have all needs coming up all the time. We looked at, you know, we have that capital list. I mean, I would just assume bond. We haven't bonded in 3-4 years. I would be looking probably to take this along with the school stuff, make a bigger issue, still try to do a private placement kind of thing. And move it from there and take our fund balance and take it into some of these other capital areas that we're so lacking on in the budget. I mean, we look ahead, I think we did a good job last year. Putting $1 million back into the budget, $1.80. You know, but it didn't last, you know, so is there any reason for us to think that's gonna be any different going forward? I don't know, you know, but to me, you know, I'd rather, you know, keep the fund balance intact, you know, yes, I mean, it's only 700, you know, $3/4 million, but.
We're talking about the bonding, George, I apologize, I'm passing out what is the preliminary bond plan, obviously, you guys, this is. As the budget comes along, we'll be looking at these things, but if we were to look from June of 2024, sort of gray bar to the right. As you go to the bottom, right now, the plan would call for about $9 million of borrowing, that assumes we get nothing and move forward with both HVAC projects. And a conversation that needs to happen, PVC, the council, and you guys about 5 science classrooms that are very, very old. This, again, you may choose to push things out or what have you, but I wanted to kind of lay down for you the magnitude of bonding that we're looking at. You know, you're looking at some bridges, you're looking at some roofs, you're looking at window replacements at the schools. We're going to circle back, we're taking a couple years off, we're going to circle back to fire vehicles as well. Yeah. So there's some big items here. This is just, again, this is not confirmed. You guys can certainly move this all around. But I just, as we talk about what bonding is coming forward, I just wanted you guys to see as you think about the capital plan, there are some big amounts coming down. And I wanted to put this out here to get your thoughts on it. Because I think there's merit in going both directions. There's merit on not borrowing in anticipation you're going to borrow a lot. There's merit in leaving something kind of in the cookie jar, so to speak, and borrowing a little now so you don't drain the whole fund balance.
I would start things up.
No,
This list. I would also add the 4 classrooms that here's for the ones that have the flat money at the and then
the portables.
yeah, like that's gonna be and 4 on our side as well. So Kevin, what's any other comments? Feel free to.
George, did you want to weigh in?
I'm kind of leaning where Jerry was. I think we're gonna have things we haven't thought of before. We can put a bonding package together if we can drive this in with the HVAC upgrades for the other schools. I'd prefer to wait for that and keep this money in reserve for things that we might come out of the blue that it wouldn't be worth bonding for on a term basis. Yeah, we don't know what's going to happen over the year. It's not a tremendous amount of money, but it would solve a lot of little problems along the way if we had that money in fund balance.
Okay.
So are we this number fixed? What for the coverage gaps? Did we get $1,000?
I'm sorry.
Look at the first number, the coverage gaps.
It's not completely solid, but it is good. The police department, this is for dead spots around town. The police department did test the state radio system, it does cover it. The money that's used in here is we now need to upgrade the firmware. There's a lot of one-time costs to get the radios to be able to work with both the local and the state system. So much less than we originally thought. Building 2 towers, we were talking about $1.5 million. So it did work, so it should be substantially less. The police Police and dispatch, they have a whole team that's working together, meeting with the state as well as the vendor. So that number will get firmed up before we conclude the budget. I think that's good news. As you'll see when I talk about my update and the opportunities, if you haven't looked further forward, but the town received $509,000 expectedly, but not banked on from the state. In the current biennial budget, the state actually incorporated, the legislature added language for a pool of money that if the state sales tax revenue exceeded a certain amount, that they would use a pool of money established within the budget to give money out to the towns. In FY 22, that we did not hit that threshold as a state, and the money was not distributed. OPM gave guidance to everybody, don't put this in your budget, don't bank on it. Long story short, the state did hit it for FY 23, and so we did receive the budgeted municipal revenue sharing grant that we expected. 509, just shy of 510,000, it's on the list of opportunities. Hiroshi and I had some conversations, as you can imagine, about what you do with that. I mean, that's real money. I will tell you that there are a number of vehicles on the town side that are in really bad shape. I'll give you one example. The grounds department has a truck where it's rusting and the inside of the roof is actually falling on the drive. It's actually rusting from the inside. I guess there's lights that were added on and moisture got behind them, so it's actually in. We have several vehicles between grounds, highway, and facilities, as well as some of the vehicles just within the general fleet. For example, the building department has 3 vehicles for 3 people. At one point in the last month, 2 of those 3 vehicles were in the garage to be repaired and off the road. So we would like to come back and ask to appropriate that money for vehicles, money purchases. But in the interest of full disclosures, we're talking half to 750,000 out of few things. Talking to police radios, talking really behind on vehicles. The current capital plan costs over $1 million of vehicles for the town side. That's how far apart we are on a lot of those vehicles. Jim Simons, I would say, over the last 2 to 3 years has been very strict about if I can get the vehicle, ask for the money. And he has pulled a number of them off. I know you were participating this year, Tim, right? Over the last couple of years, he's had things on the list and said, I can't get the vehicle, take it off the list. But we're now at a point where we need those vehicles. And then obviously we're talking about the police station location, all in that same $500,000 to $750,000 range. So I just didn't want this to go there and then come back later on. I just want to make sure you're, again, no decisions tonight, but
So when the decision came in?
we will probably come forward in December requesting to use it for the vehicles, unless there's a real objection to that, in which case we got
Even at 500,000.
500,000.
Specific for this, when the decisions were made in respect of how we go forward on the police station.
I will probably, if we want to go with number 2, which would be reaching out to local banks and negotiating, I would probably start that either early December or after the new year. I've already had conversations with one local bank that's very interested in this range of interest rates, very interested in doing business with the town. I mean, we're AAA rated. I will tell you that the negotiated portion is far easier than the general obligation. It's basically application. And given the community and what we have as clear financials, it's not gonna be a problem to get money used to. I would just try to go to 2 or 3 banks and the best rate possible.
That's a little different than what Jerry was talking about, right? Consolidated with the bigger bond, that's what he was talking about.
And I could wait, and it's hard to tell because the state, when
Gonna
it
know
did
when
the first,
the school was.
we're gonna apply then. The state had said at one point that during the first round of this, they were about 3 months later when they announced who was winning. Than they originally told us. So I don't know that we want to go out that far, but we can front it with fund balance and then borrow and replenish if that's what.
We already have $1 million available to pay for the construction as it begins. So it's
That
not
was
like
the
we
point
have,
of it, we can get
yeah, it's
started.
not like we have to make the decision.
Well, I'd like to see how this budget's developing before we do anything serious either, because I don't want to pop up with another $5 million surplus. and have gone and bonded $600,000, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I don't think we'll see that from.
Well,
his
we-
report.
I didn't think you'd see it this year.
Back to that plan right here.
Sorry. They were kind of jumping into 4 or 5
Okay, sorry.
places.
Sorry, sorry. You talked about the boilers, right? But are these boilers the ones that, the ones that don't actually work in the schools? Or is it the mild, the low miles, low type of?
Hey Doug, can I tap into your expertise since you're on the phone? The boilers that are in the capital plan as we look out over the next couple of years. Are those the new energy efficient boilers or are those the more traditional style?
Good evening. Yes, we're looking at that. The PBC had asked to do a study evaluation of existing conditions and then opinions of cost and options. So we're working on that right now. So we should have some more information coming forward in the next couple months.
Thanks, Doug. So if it's the new efficient, shouldn't we put the windows first?
Yeah, certainly the envelope would help. High efficiency windows would help with any heat loss, heat gain.
Because we're putting them 2-3 years after one of the first boilers.
But these boilers that the PVC says aren't gonna work with our systems that are in there.
That's the question.
Yes, that's my, but the answer is no. I'm not even sure why these are still in there, but.
Well, we need to replace the boilers. Question.
No, I understand, but we have $1 million each year when we don't know what it's gonna be.
Well, I mean, the plan that you get out of the out years is the best information we have now, and it gets modified as we go through every year. I wouldn't take those as hard numbers that we're gonna go with, but it should give you some perspective on the magnitude of what you're looking at. If it goes from 7 to 6 or 5.5, yeah, that's still substantial bond.
So our next meeting is December 12th. So we can make a decision December 12th to study funding, the balance of funding for the.
We could do
Because, I mean, if you want, you can still go to the bank and just get the information on, and we can finally say,
Yeah.
maybe we go with surplus, maybe we don't.
And I would say probably not December, because the council that night is going to vote to award it.
Okay.
So they're gonna start the project at the very earliest, true earliest, would be December 13th. That would be if they just immediately went in.
Isn't it now at your level, the 3 people that are deciding how much to borrow?
How much to borrow?
Yes.
I mean, ultimately,
774.
we would decide. I'm just asking your opinion because,
Yes, I mean, it's not like we have a binding vote
no,
on anything at any point.
unless you were all comfortable and said, I'd like to use fund balance for this, then we would avoid the bond. That's why I brought it up to say, if you had a strong feeling, it sounds like the general consensus is hold off. And let's probably not use fund balance right now, see if we get anything, so if the HVAC moves forward, we can wrap it in more of a GL bond.
Yeah.
Which is fine, I mean, we can wait, I can do it in January, we can wait until February, you certainly have the fund balance to float.
Yeah,
For
like
better
you
word
said,
for the
you could
project,
use it.
and then come back and bond and replenish.
Yeah, I think, maybe have some discussions with the bank people too, as to their feelings in terms of whether we do this with short-term funding, to see if the rates are gonna go down. Or if it's a small amount, we could probably do it over 5 years anyways. But if, even on the other ends, if we need to start those projects real quick, and we need cash, then they wanna do some short-term or bands up front. Advantage of decreasing rates in a year or two.
And like I said, the town's in a great position because when the banks contacted me and I met, they're like, tell us what you need. They're very interested in which is. Which is good place to get in.
You got your input.
What's that?
You got your input on this.
Thank you.
The next item, I'm not really gonna talk about it. I wanted to put it in our agenda only because I wanted it as a public document. It was an email between myself and the Board of Education and the Board of Finance. So But I am gonna ask the mayor and town council whether he would invite the president of the Board of Education to address my letter in front of the town council first. I'll be there and Board of Finance members would be, welcome to join, but that's what I think my next step would be. Because they're not really responding to me.
Were there any cuts made that you're aware of? Were there cuts, like staffing cuts?
Yes, within the staffing or whatever, I mean,
I'm not sure we should put him on the spot.
Yeah, I do believe there were, but I can't really, I don't know specifically, but I.
If they don't want to answer me, I mean, why would they answer him?
He's
well liked.
This was the proposed
yes.
cuts that they were going to make.
Yeah.
If the-
Yeah.
And all I'm asking is,
They got the certain.
we didn't give you the 5.8%, we gave you 3.6.
Yeah.
Tell me,
So this was their,
they presented it to us, yeah.
This is what they, this is what we got. This is what they said they needed. So everything here should be raised.
what they got last.
And this was presented in multiple meetings throughout the school system with the parents.
The 4.2 PTO meeting, so that's what we kept saying, it's 4.2, 4.2, 4.2.
And they ended up getting
3.6.
3.6.
Different sites.
Yeah.
Any more discussion on this item? Okay. Devin?
So you have the status report update, just quickly going through a couple of things. Revenue is slightly behind where we were in 23. The major driver of that is tax revenue. You can see the relationship between the revenue and tax revenue. We are a little bit behind. What we're seeing is more of a return to pre-COVID payments. During COVID, we had more people who came in July and paid the full year, so they didn't have to come back out and go in public. We're seeing a return to a lot more foot traffic this year, and we're seeing more of that pattern. We do believe that that is going to come in. We still have confidence we're coming on budget, but it is a little bit behind as a percent of budget from where we were last year, but not an alarming amount either. Insurance funds continue to perform well. The reserves continue to be strong. We're in a good position with that. As you may recall, we switched from Anthem to Cigna for everything but dental. So basically medical and RX. And things seem to be going well there. Collection pattern, everything seems to be
When
going
did that change
July 1.
of this year?
This fiscal year. The dental is out in the market. We may stay with Anthem or we may move. Dental continues to perform well as Paul said, as it always.
Final number that we settled on was what, 8%? In terms of the budget, that the Board of Ed was gonna put aside.
Of the increase year over year, we went with 7 or 8. I have to go back and look specifically.
Because I remember us talking about it at the budget time,
Yeah, I think,
whether it was 10 or 8, and I'm just wondering where it's settled, because that's sort of,
I have to go back and look. I think it was 7, but I have to go back and confirm the model.
that sort of builds in.
You're planning on 10.
yeah, what happened was we gave them a little more, we didn't have the final numbers yet.
Because that builds in a surplus.
Yeah.
It's about the surplus.
Well, their report, the Board of Education shows like $500,000-$600,000. If it's all already liability, there's room in that benefits area for that. Because don't they take it as a full liability?
We charge the Board of Ed and the town at the beginning of the year for the full budget amount. It shifted over
Yes,
to
whatever the
insurance.
number is, it's set, it's not like they get the
Change
benefit.
that up, right?
But between the time we think they're putting 8% in and they decide it's 7, well, that's.
But I mean, when did they get that?
It started, Jerry, when did we make that change?
Which-
Years ago?
Which one?
About doing it at the beginning of the year rather than.
Yeah, just,
Five
well,
years.
I've been just, this is 6 years done, so it's probably about 5.
4 or 5 years ago.
And so a year after I started.
We had a situation probably about 5 years ago where we were cash positive, but fund balance negative, and it dropped down. So we had a couple of years of 10% increases, but also helping with the cash flow, putting it in.
Are they also in Cigna?
Yes, the town and board of ed is all still
Okay.
one, everything is still the same, the unions on the town side still negotiate together. All of that's still in place. So we're in good shape on both of those, it's solid. The closed DD plan, remains solid, that's on the second page. We're probably looking at slightly less ADAC this year than last year. And if you recall, we did have, 3 active participants and 1 inactive but vested participant. We finally were able to get that person to reach in and take his money. So we are down to 3 actives and we have 15 annuitants, so we're in good shape on the closed one. The new police pension, we have moved almost all of the money over. There were a couple of things, a couple of issues that we're working through between Mission Square and Webster, but we're pretty much locked in on that money. Once all of that is settled, I will then transfer the town share over there. You approved a transfer tonight to cover some of the DC pension money because 2 police officers off the list decided not to move to DB. They had an option to stay or go, and 2 of them elected not to move. So we had anticipated everybody would move. The town is subsidizing the amount. So they chose not to, so that's why we had to put some money back in.
No, that's not something that they can change later.
One-time option to go in and they chose not to move.
Well, it's nice
Are
to
they-
see that unfunded liability as such a small number as compared to when we started here.
And in the process, we paid out about $14 million. That have been here, so not only is that there, but a lot of money has been paid out, but the liabilities there, so. And then the last thing I'll say on the financials is there's a lot of active projects, as you can imagine, with the winter, things are winding down. Fort Bridge Rehab Project continues to finish off with the state. And I'm happy to say that we received the last bills, so the fire alarm upgrades at all of the schools are now completed, so that's great for the kids, teachers, administrators. And sidewalk upgrades, we're waiting on some final bills, which would be like Landing Court, as well as the area across from Citgo out by Glen Billard. So those were some of those done this year. Percival Soccer Field, they're walking that now. The Scaglio, they are dealing with the last pieces there. So I don't know if you haven't had a chance to go out to the Scaglio, it looks great. I know Steve Wood has been showing some pictures. I know a lot of people have asked for that for a long time, so hopefully it's well used and well received both by the school and by youth sports using it. And then the HVAC upgrades continue at Willard, and obviously we talked about police station renovation, so projects are continuing to move. I did mention, as you see, the 509,953, that is the FY 23 municipal revenue sharing grant, so I distinguished that from the 24 that we're in. That was the 24 was the budgeted amount. So under receipts, you'll see the probability is high because we already received the cash. Interest continues to be stronger. There's thoughts that might come down, and the rates seem to be staying high where we are. I did move some money around at one of the banks we worked with because they offered us a 5% money market rate, as opposed to the 0.25 that we were getting, so we took advantage of that. So STIP is still north of 5% with the state, and now we're at 5% with another bank, so we're continuing to get good interest. Vacant positions, unfortunately, we are seeing some budget benefit, not operational benefit, but budget benefit. We're at half staff right now in the planning and zoning group. We also are assistant planner and a very, very long tenured white collar person retired. So Maureen is at half staff there. And the police department did get to 43, but now it looks like they might be stepping back 1 or 2, just with some folks choosing to leave. So I don't know that we're gonna touch on that amount that was approved but not budgeted. Which frankly is a little bit unfortunate because the police wanted to be at 46 and they're struggling to get there, not from a lack of effort, just from being able to recruit and hire.
Sorry, this was
Before I jump, I'll see if there's anything for you.
the 2 cops that are leaving, are they new guys or are they veterans of the PD?
One that I know will be leaving is a veteran, he's very good, he's got a tremendous opportunity. But, yeah. And then the other is not brand new, but not long tenured either. It's unfortunate, but they have some stuff in the pipeline they're trying to work through, but it seems like, you know, they get to the 43 and then it seems like it slides back and they come back up. Hopefully that will change.
You had mentioned before some item in the current year budget for interest that we didn't end up doing borrowing.
155,000.
Is that something we want to just see on the opportunities going forward?
I didn't put it on because I wasn't sure what you wanted to do, because I figured that money would be applied against the police station.
Alright,
I just figured since it's in. the
I
budget.
just figured because it was big, we might see it. Yeah.
I didn't just because we were gonna talk about it, I didn't know what you wanted to do with that, but yeah.
So that's good news. I mean, it's pretty start. $1,600,000. Would you say no more surplus?
Really? One word.
All right.
I look at this and I'm like, that's the
Well,
wrong
I
word.
understand. But, you know,
This is, some of this is also fairy tales.
all right.
It is.
It needs to be done, but. If there's no other questions, I just had a couple other things. You have a draft of 2024 meeting dates. In the December meeting, we have to vote on the 2024 meeting dates, so I put them out here just so everybody have a chance between now and the next meeting, to see if there's any issues or conflicts. As always, August is out there in case we need to do budget transfers, but as we showed this year, if all we have is budget transfers, we can also do it through email and we can document it that way. There's no reason to come meet in August for that. And I also put a fiscal year 2025 budget calendar, starting with March 1, which is Friday, when the budget is emailed and delivered to Board of Finance and Town Council. One thing I will call out, again, to talk about next meeting, but just so you guys have an opportunity. I'm proposing to split, but March 4th, March 6th. It seems like over the last couple of years, we've kind of consolidated the Board of Ed and the town operations, and that ends up being a very long night. So I'm proposing to kind of do the overview, revenue, capital, debt transfers, which we can typically go through fairly quickly. And even town operations on that Monday. And then come back on Wednesday and dedicate that night exclusively to the Board of Ed. That seems to, I think that would probably benefit everybody involved.
I'm good with that. I mean, we seem to run out of time all the time.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that we can do town council chambers that seem to work well. You seem to like that last year. And also it will invite more participation from the public, like we had in a couple of meetings in this room. So you'll see, hopefully I can get town council chambers for those different nights, but I also was looking at separating out, you'll see there's a meeting on the 11th, so that following Monday, but then skipping, you have another meeting the next night. Typically, we cancel that Wednesday meeting when we've had it on and then circle back. It ends up being a lot. You've now met for 2 straight weeks. There's only so many nights. Eventually, you want to kind of digest stuff. So we could certainly add the 13th back on here, but I know at least the last couple of years, you have, you've canceled it because it's just too much in 1 week. So anyway, any thoughts? We'll talk about it at the next meeting. It's an opportunity to kind of review.
You guys remember a couple of years ago, we met with the BOE and town council at the senior center in January. Yes, discuss what the accreditation.
That was a joint meeting we had, yeah.
You had it about ARPA? We talked about ARPA.
That was-
The rules around ARPA, the use of ARPA money.
What if we had a meeting like that to talk about expectations? Budgets.
I know we've had, I've had some, small meetings with, our manager, Kevin, the president and the superintendent to kind of discuss going forward, you know what I mean? What I found out about those bigger meetings, becomes too generalized, to be honest with you, very well. And I find out we didn't really get a lot out of it, you know what I'm saying? I'm welcome to have them, but it just, people are all over the place and.
People make a point of seeing their games. On this meeting. right here, March 4th and March 6th. I know what you're saying about being at a big meeting. But frankly, I think it should be one meeting and you discuss the town first. And then they can go after us. For the BOE. Because honestly, it was very discouraging when we talked about the town side of things and but actually we talked about the BOE side of things and we went to the town and everybody, half the room leaves.
That was actually by request of the board, because they had so many people there, they wanted to go first, so people could leave, especially those with children and stuff, but I'm not with anything, I'm there the whole night anyway, so whatever you wanna do.
Us too. Yeah.
I just didn't know, because the Board of Ed seemed to consume a lot of time and energy, that it might be worth separating out.
I kinda like,
Whatever you want.
I kinda like it separate, but I guess I would require that at least the leadership on the board of ed show up to the town meeting so they can get an understanding.
I would be okay with that.
They can get an understanding what's happening with the town, you know,
And when you say leadership though, who do you mean?
the president, the superintendent, the finance director. I mean, if they want to invite anybody else, welcome to it, but at least those people that we deal with from a budget standpoint. So, you know, so that we invite them, Kevin, because, you know, they gotta understand the town side, because we have to balance both sides, you know.
They should do it, but they won't. That's what you mean.
Well, they have their charge
Yep.
to do what they're going to do. We think it makes a lot of sense to know the total problem, but the total is our problem,
I understand that.
not their problem. So I'm
I
not
can
sure.
I can certainly invite, make sure that they're invited and aware of it.
Yeah, I think I may have that small meeting before anything even starts to. So,
There's nothing else on that, I know you wanted a VNA update. So, you have the monthly. You have the monthly financial report as well as the P&L. I won't spend a lot of time on the P&L because that's kind of self-explanatory. But, they have been making progress. The first quarter that you're seeing here was not what any of them wanted, or anybody wanted out of it. But it has been improving. The town manager, the VNA director, and I visited the Westbrook VNA director and the first selectman, which I think was a very informative meeting for all of us. We talked a lot about how Westbrook is at break even. One of the things that we were able to learn while we were down there is Westbrook in their budgeting does not include fringe benefits in department budgets. So health insurance, fighting food, and all of that is separate. If you were to take that and apply it to the Berlin VNA budget, the $700,000 loss, about $350,000, but about half of it is fringe benefits of the staff. So, on an apples to apples basis, you could argue that there's $350,000 sort of explained there.
Is that why they're saying that we break even? Because their benefits are not in that?
That's part of the reason, if they have benefits in there, they would be, but that's,
Right.
they choose, and there are a number of towns who choose to do it the way we do it, and there are a number of towns who choose to keep it separate. There are a number of towns who have a department called Sundry, they put all of their liability insurance, workers' comp, health insurance, everything kind of in this bucket. Under the idea that it's not really controlled by any department. If you hire somebody who buys health insurance, the department head doesn't decide what health insurance, doesn't decide whether the person buys or not. So that's kind of their rationale with it. We did also learn a couple of operational differences. And the VNA director is actively working to implement those. There won't be huge cost savings, but there is some potential cost savings and some things that the VNA does today. That they could modify what they're doing without negatively affecting patient care. The VNA is also actively working to develop relationships and a pipeline of potential patients with UConn Health Center, Bristol Hospital, Middlesex Hospital, and several area nursing facilities. So being able to potentially have Berlin residents who go to those facilities coming out and being aware. They did also talk about the VNA director at both Westbrook and Berlin talked a lot about marketing, how they get out. Westbrook has a tremendous amount with word of mouth. So a lot of it is about getting out in the community, being a part of fairs and other things that are happening, just getting their name out so people know when they're leaving the hospital. We also met, the B&A director, the budget manager, and I met earlier this week to review every single line of the budget and go through trying to find areas for savings. Not as an Excel exercise, but genuinely actual savings within the budget. And the question, you could look at the numbers and I'll try to answer if there are questions that you have. One question that did come from Aaliyah, if she would like to come to the meeting either December or January, I know she came last January, talk about what's happening, but also talk about what is your expectation? It's just she's building out budget from a revenue and from an expense standpoint. There's no point in building a budget that says, hey, we reduce the projected loss by $100,000 and you're thinking, I want that number down 400,000. If we're off 25 or 50 grand, there's something to be done there, but if we're way off, she'd like to know before coming in and submitting a budget, understand what's happening.
Our budget's submitted to the town manager in December.
The initial pass is due end of this month. And then we assemble it during December, put it together, and then the town manager meets with department heads in January. So that's a pass. It doesn't mean that's the way it is. Town managers typically will modify. It doesn't mean they dramatically modify, but they're going to certainly ask questions and have the right to modify any line in any budget until the town manager's submission. So having a better feel for where you'd like to, obviously you'd like to see it break even, but I also don't think any of us would believe that's a rational possibility within 1 year. So as far as like the next step and where you'd like to see it go, so that it's a better use of your time. I don't know if you're up for her participating either in December or January, and if you have a preference.
Okay with December, everybody else. I mean, if you look at some of the wage categories, Kevin, is it because there's not enough revenue that they're not spending? Some of those wage categories, like occupational therapists, physical therapists, social workers.
They're per diem, so it is based on the volume.
So
You don't have
so
to.
that has to do with volume, right?
Yes.
Because if I just did a quick projection of revenue, their budget is $700K, and my projection says 525. And so
It is picking up.
they're being offset by the cost because they're not spending, the per diem stuff.
Yes.
But that's even.
Well, the per diem stuff is the stuff that they get reimbursed on too.
Yeah,
So, I mean, at least we know we're getting paid something for those services. It's the other services.
Yeah.
The other labor
Yes.
costs that we're not getting reimbursed for that are really killing us.
Can I just make a comment?
Sure.
So one of the issues I have, and I'll go back from when we met with her before and we tried to lay out the metrics and so forth. One of the things that we're still not seeing is staff utilization rates. So you can show that you got a revenue of $100,000 and your cost was, $75,000, now all looks well, but that's predicated on what the hourly rate and the number of hours the person spent, but it doesn't reflect the number of hours the person was sitting on the bench. And that's the fundamental issue that we have. When we talked to her and she was direct, she's honest, and I think she's doing a great job trying to turn this around. The question is whether it's feasible to turn it around given the market that they deal in. And not knowing the utilization rates, it's like how many hours are these people intended to work? Like how many billable hours are per visiting, a RN versus a healthcare worker versus, a therapist, whatever, and how many are they actually working? And that's why, we ended up cutting 1.5 positions last year because they're sitting on the bench. And that's what we have to look at when we come and look at this. And is that something that's solvable or not? So again, do they need as many people as they've got to do the amount of work that they have? I'm not trying to say it's not a valuable position, but when we come down to it, if they're only working 50% or 75% of the time because they're sitting on the bench, that's the issue that we got versus having full-time staff versus having per diem workers.
That's a question I had too now. You said that there was $350,000 in benefits. But is that when you apply their model to Berlin? Or is that their actual model? Because I know Westbrook relies a lot more on per diem
The 350 was actually the Berlin number,
Okay.
not the Westbrook number.
So that would, Westbrook's number would be significantly lower.
I would expect it to be lower if for no other reason they have 6 full-time staff versus 8 in Berlin. Just that alone, it should be lower.
It's like those numbers that I showed the pie graph. Out of town, in town, it shows $2,000 of profit per month. But to George's point, that number, those numbers mean nothing. I mean.
Knowing they're doing great.
Well, yeah, the problem is, I mean, George has brought it up in the past, that we wanna know what the cost is. Well, these are probably just direct costs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Probably doesn't include any part of the allocated admin or anything else. So I mean, that cost of care to me is a meaningless number.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, I've hopped on this time and time again.
Yeah.
What is the cost of $1 of revenue? And that's the only thing that matters in the bottom line. And I'm not even say they have to recover everything because as some say, there's maybe a social service aspect of this or whatever, but we don't understand it. That's the issue. We don't understand whether it's good, bad, or indifferent.
Exactly. I'm gonna set it there myself.
You know, it goes, I learned something, I saw my doctor last week. And I learned something that the reason you have to go to CVS or Walgreens now for your shots is they weren't reimbursing the doctors enough. So the doctor said, we're not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
Let CVS do it,
Yeah.
you know, let Walgreens do it. So I mean, they saw a place where they were losing money every time they did a service.
Well, businesses don't do what you're losing money on.
You know,
And this is a business, I mean, no matter how you look
and he
at it.
says they'll do flu shots because they make money on flu shots, but nothing else.
All the-
So Kevin,
They will try and shake us down.
So you want me to add her to the agenda and have her come in and serve?
Yeah.
So right now we're.
But I'd like you to feed back to Erosion to her that one of the things that we asked for 6 months ago or 8 months ago was what is your utilization?
Yep.
It should be a very easy number to report. And it's not to hang them out to dry, it's just for us to have an understanding of how they are doing.
Yep.
Yeah, when you said you saw improvements, Kevin, you weren't looking at revenue, right?
There are improvements in October's number. This is through September.
No, this
We
is,
saw-
this is,
Oh, sorry.
Not that good.
October, we found 18,000, 17,000.
So what? So what are we talking about for losses? Right now, if we keep doing this rate?
Well, the budget is $757,000 loss. And because of their costs being, not as high. I just projected for the first $684,000. Because of the revenue, they're offsetting, the costs. With, lower costs from.
Yeah, revenue shortfall, expenditure savings.
Basically almost a wash between the cost and the revenue.
Budget number 5 of this. For me anyway.
Anything else, Ken?
That's all I have. There's more questions.
We're
Maybe I should have
talking
ended
about-
with the good news with the police station.
We're trying to come up with money for the police station, and here it is, year after year after year.
All right, a motion to adjourn.
Oh, we have to do the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What? Usually do it at the beginning, but we have the chairman, so.
I'm sorry. All right, I have a motion to approve the October 19, 2023 regular meeting minutes section. Those in favor?
Aye.
And I guess I have to stay.
Now I have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay,
Second,
those in favor?
aye.
Everyone have a nice Thanksgiving.
Thanks.
All right, happy Thanksgiving.
Night, George. Night, Doug.
Kids are.
Boy.